What's up, guys, and welcome to
What's
another.
up?
God damn it! This podcast is off rails to begin with. This is one of your hosts, Yvonne, and I'm Julien because fuck everyone. This. Damn it. Alright, anyways, this is the Hungover Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in.
What is Hungover Podcast?
Hungover Podcast is a topical podcast that you can get every single week on Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on SoundCloud, iTunes, and in video form on YouTube. Yes, even in video form. We put it all over the places. We try to go everywhere you are because, well,
We're also
you know what?
MasterCard.
No, because social media is everywhere they are. Yvonne, the topic of the show is something that I've been thinking about for a while. What is the topic of the show? The topic of the show, I think, is we're gonna cover social media, on social media, by social media, for social media.
It's the Abraham Lincoln speech of social media.
Yes, of course, 400 and 700 tweets ago.
Nice.
God damn it. Nailed it. Nailed it.
You brought it up.
Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes. And if you could, give us an iTunes review, maybe a 5-star one, because that really helps with our visibility. Yvonne, again, the topic of the show, still formulating how to put it in my mind, because I've been thinking about it for a while. You know, with the most recent hashtag #MeToo in social media, of course, a very powerful movement thus far, and I think so far fairly successful in what it aims to do.
Finally.
So I'm thinking that the topic of the show, just for your reference, is indeed, is social media becoming a force to be reckoned with? That's really what I want to delve deep into, but that's for the topic of the show section. Of course, we start our podcast out every single week by asking each other, what'd you drink last night? And of course, what media have you been consuming? Maybe social media. Yvonne, how has your week been going since we last podcast, which was 2 days ago? Literally.
Since we last podcast, so much has happened in my life.
Yes.
Let's not have dead air. Let's see. I had a Ruski Standard and some maple whiskey
Ruski
yesterday.
Standard. A maple whiskey.
Yeah, that was okay. The Ruski Standard was definitely, the proportions were off. Not enough lime, which is the main reason to drink the Ruski Standard.
It cuts the vodka entirely somehow?
Yes.
How? How
don't
does
know.
lime just completely cut vodka? At all.
Mostly the sugars and the acid.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's all that limes are composed of, just sugars and acids. Yeah, well, that's cool.
You're the chemist. I
think
believe you. If you're telling me something that isn't true, then
you better
you're
call
just
me
as
out
bad
on
as
social
Trumpism
media.
on social media.
Are you just trying to segue into social media right now? Yvonne, I think you have something else to talk about. You played a certain game that you're in love with this year. That came out this year, perhaps?
I did! I totally did. If you caught the video that came out on Friday as part of our Let's Play series, we did a Let's Play the first hour or so of Into the Frozen Wilds from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes, it's an awesome DLC for, I believe it retails $20 now, but if you have PlayStation Plus, you can get it for $15. It's an excellent addition to the game, of course. It adds a new skill tree, if I'm not mistaken, and some new enemies, which is really cool, and a whole new portion of the map to explore, and a new story.
Weird. It's like the enemies aren't...
They're modified in some way.
They're just over... It's like, how do we create an enemy that can be handled by a player that's beat the whole game?
Yes, of course.
Overpower them and make them take no damage. I got it.
Who knows? But you haven't played the game since it came out, if I'm not, or since you beat it, rather, like March.
April-ish. Yeah, so it's been a while since I played, so our first 20 minutes or so was a bit rough. I forgot how to do a lot of different things, but thankfully Aloy is a Time Lord, so she can manipulate time just by jumping. And that helped me get through a lot of it. It looks pretty interesting. I'm going to explore it a bunch. It's 12 hours of content, I discovered, so that's well worth the $15 price tag, I think.
It gets the Hungover Gaming seal of approval, you would say?
I would say.
Check that out.
I also need to play it more before I definitely say so. But so far so good. They even start off with doing something that, because you usually have to just start off by climbing the tallest tower, tallest room to look upon the land thing. But even to begin the game in this area, you had to do a mission to reactivate the tallest tower creature, the long neck.
Tall neck.
Yes.
Maybe.
Land Before
I don't know.
Time.
Those things are cool.
Neck. Tall neck is from Aloy times.
Well, hey, if you have a PS4 and you have an extra $15, I suggest you pick this up. And of course, you would have to have the game to do that. But if you don't have this game and you have a PS4, I think you're actually fucking up, and you've wasted the entire year by not playing it. It's a great game, so definitely go pick that up. Yvonne.
Oh.
That's really great to hear, but I think I may have trumped you in media consumption since our last podcast, which is surprising because I've been delving into Stranger Things instead of playing Destiny 2 and Super Mario Odyssey. Although I did play Destiny 2 last night. I'm not going to lie about that. After we stopped playing. So... I've been watching Stranger Things because everyone's telling me it's the greatest shit. It's the shit. This is the thing you need to watch now, and I hope it's all over social media, maybe. I'm really into the 80s aesthetic. That's something I've always had a weird connection to, even though I was born in 1991. Clearly not the 80s, not even...
Saw an 80s
like, you can't even get away with saying, oh, I was born in 89. I'm an 80s kid. I can't even say that. So, so but for some reason, I always had this weird connection with 80s movies, and specifically ones related to school-age kids and high school and, like, Breakfast Club. For some reason, I really like that movie. And I just like the aesthetic of Say Anything.
Got your
love that
boombox
movie.
Going?
I actually love that movie. But... yeah, so I just, for some reason, I like the aesthetic of 80s suburb, like white suburb high school. For some reason, I like that. It's very comforting for me to watch. So this show obviously hits on those notes and adds a sci-fi twist to it, which is perfect for me. So being a scientist. So I'm super into it. I was a little turned off by some of the CG scenes. Obviously, I won't spoil anything. I've only watched 4 episodes anyways. But I don't necessarily... of season 1, rather.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, so, but I really like the kid actors. They're definitely the star of the show. I even though Winona Ryder is the lead role, apparently. I guess.
She?
Well, her name always comes up first in the title.
I think she's just the biggest name attached to the
project.
No,
that's why. Yeah, so she's the lead. That's what they're selling it with, right? So even though there's no reason to, because all the actors in it are amazing, I'd say. I think everyone's playing their roles amazingly. And in fact, the reason why I decided to watch it was because I saw just a clip of the Stranger Kids boys on Jimmy Fallon. And I'd never seen... I mean, this must be their first work, maybe. Or this is definitely their breakthrough role, if anything. Because I don't know how... They're fairly young. They're maybe 13 now. I don't know. And I don't know, just their interactions in that interview, as maybe corny or scripted as it was, really sold me on them being people that I would want to watch in a TV show for how many hours? It's 8 hours, 16 hours.
Oh
How
my
many?
God.
Right?
It's
That's a
9
long time.
episodes, and they're an hour each.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So, 2 seasons, 18 or 16, however many it is. Yeah. So if I'm gonna spend 16 hours of my life watching someone on screen, I better like them. So they definitely sold me on the show, and they didn't even talk about the show. So that was a good thing. And I really like the show. So if you haven't watched it yet, definitely get a Netflix subscription, like 30-day free trial, whatever it is, or maybe however long you can get free trial. If you don't have Netflix, steal it from your friends, because this is definitely worth watching. I would say the Hungover Gaming seal of approval. We're putting that shit on it. But yeah, that's about the media I've consumed. I think.
How do you feel about 11 and her child
11.
exploitation?
She wait wait, what do you mean? She was. How do I feel about her as a character?
Yeah, I'm not talking about the actress. I would say the actress's
Yeah.
name, Millie Bobby Brown.
Yes, of course. I'm super into her role. I think she has a cool role, and it's very mysterious.
Who's your
And
favorite kid?
The chubby one with the lisp. I forget his name.
Dustin.
Everyone likes him.
Everybody does like him.
I think he's funny. You don't like him.
I think
Of course
he's a
you don't.
disappointing character in season 2. I think there's
Oh, okay. I haven't seen season
I think there's too much. It's like he's the character that definitely blows up in season 1 the most, but I think it's because he hits his shots really well. And I think in season 2 they're like, yes, more of that.
Okay,
All
I
of
see.
the more of
We have to
that.
capitalize on this now,
Um,
before your voice drops or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Before you go through
I
puberty.
enjoyed season 1 a lot more than season 2. So I'm glad you're getting through it. And I love all of those characters in season 1. So
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, I like 11. I think she's a cool character, and I like that we figure out about her life, or her past experiences and whatever.
you
Through
know what
flashbacks.
exploitation
I
you
think that's
probably
cool.
don't like?
Yeah, no, what?
The
What are you saying?
exploitation of people wherever it is, but you know how you can report on it if it's happening? This is
Twitter?
a terrible segue.
Hashtags? Twitters?
Twitter and hashtags.
Yes, I think that will transition us into the topic of the show. Of course, you can submit a topic of the show in the comment section below if you'd like to hear us talk about something specific, or if you have any questions on something that we said, etc., or any qualms with something that we say. Voice your opinion on social media. Add us, maybe through Twitter, maybe through Facebook, maybe in the comment section below, because we would love to answer your questions if you have any, or
sure.
pick a fight with you, maybe, because you hate us. Now, Yvonne,
I'll fight anyone.
I know
on-
you'll
on
fight
Social
anyone.
media.
In real life, I think you'd fight anyone. Would you fight someone on social media? On social media?
I much more prefer to use words.
Great.
I am a
That's
large but
fantastic.
frail man.
I think that's what everyone prefers to use on social media. I think, and that's what they have to use on social media. Oh, they could use
they're just
pictures and
gonna
videos.
at you, bro.
Yeah, you could tweet at me, bro. But the point is, Yvonne, I think
You have a thesis about all of this that I really want to hear.
I have a thesis about this. So the video, well, we'll see what we'll title it, but I wanted to title it The Social Media Prophecy. So, and not to sound like Morpheus or anything.
'Cause red pill has lots
the
of
red
different
pill
connotations now.
has Twitter and Facebook in it, and the blue pill has Instagram in it. Your Instagram. Which one do you take?
Facebook is Instagram.
Yeah, except is it? Is it Yvonne? I know they're owned, but everyone is on Instagram and not necessarily Facebook.
I'm not
Not
on Instagram,
necessarily.
but I
Exactly.
am on
And you're
Facebook.
totally falling behind the times.
No, I'm just a Luddite.
Yeah, I know. I know. Anyways, I wanted to talk about specifically is social media becoming a force to reckon with? Because um, specifically this hashtag Me Too, um, it's not, well, I guess it's a controversy, but it's the whole point in my understanding of it. Obviously, I haven't looked up too much about it, but aside from everyone coming out and saying these things, is to give a voice to people that otherwise would not have that voice. So to give the voice to people who have been or feel they have been at least sexually harassed in any way at all, and or at least this is my understanding of it. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. Comment section below, or Yvonne. Um, and it's become such a powerful movement that even the news reporters are. I watch the news every 3 times out of the week with my mom because I go to visit her, and she always has the news on. But I always hear the news reporters on CBS and whatever's before CBS on Channel 2. I guess it's CBS local news. They're always talking about, the next person got accused of sexual harassment, etc. And so it seems to me that this movement is becoming very very popular and very amongst social media and even news reporters, and it's becoming it's achieving its goals, right? So I'm I'm very happy for that. I definitely want that to happen, but I'm just trying to figure out, is this the first social media movement that has become so large and successful? Hopefully it becomes more successful, because I think it is a very good cause. And what do you think about that? I guess we can start there and then we can go somewhere else.
Um, I don't think this is the largest social media movement or the most powerful. I think it's the social media movement of the moment. But I would have to think that at times we've had encountered we have encountered as a society greater movements that have used the social media platform to give voice to their issue, whether it be Occupy Wall Street, which did
Mm-hmm.
it when the medium was much less infiltrated. So now the number of Twitter users, Facebook users, Instagram users, Snapchat users is just burgeoning, right? It's
Yeah.
immense. It's almost harder to find people who don't have a social media account than do.
Right, of course.
Um,
Even my mom has a Facebook.
so
So,
I think that
friend her.
now it's definitely a lot more engaging in terms of the interaction and different things. But I think there have been several movements who have had their voice heard through social media and have been just as powerful, just as loud, and shaped the conversation of the nation a lot through social media. Whether we go back to Occupy Wall Street, the Black Lives Matter movement,
Yes.
the Women's March after the election of Donald Trump, and now the Me Too hashtag. I think that there are a lot of different moments. And the four things that I just named, interestingly enough, are fairly. I think that sexual harassment, etc., sexual assaults, are a bipartisan issue. But it seems to me that the louder voices, or the voices for the majority that we hear on social media, in terms of those four movements that I listed, are more liberal sided. So it's interesting. I could have maybe even completely missed the conservative side of social media movements just because of the echo chamber of social media. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not I have conservative friends, very conservative friends on Facebook. I'm not really. I have a Twitter, but I don't engage. So I don't necessarily see all of the big conservative hashtags, but maybe and possibly they're there, especially with like the deplorables, hashtag deplorables. I assume that was a big conservative movement during the election of Donald Trump. I think that it might be the most. It's right now the hashtag Me Too is probably the most pressing hashtag, and it's probably the most widespread and activated at the moment. But I don't think it is the only. I don't think it. I don't know how we can quantify it being the largest movement sparked by social media.
Okay.
And simply speaking, I mean, the Ice Bucket Challenge was a huge one too.
That's true. I remember this.
I mean,
even my dad, he's someone who definitely doesn't have a social media account, and he knew about that somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know how, but yeah,
so it's
you're
interesting.
Right.
I mean, I think that it's the most pressing issue that we have now. I don't remember exactly the wording of the question to begin with. But I also don't think that we can talk about social media as the... I think it's a platform and a tool. I don't think it's a movement itself.
I agree. I don't think it's a movement itself either. But I wanted... I guess more specifically, I wanted to know what you think about... I mean, I think that we're, like you said, we have every day a new social media account is born, right? Or millions are born.
Yeah. And a lot of them are just
fake
click farms. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, exactly. So that might be another problem that we could talk about. But I think that are we reaching a point of social media saturation to the point where everyone has access to this, which everyone does if they want to. Then
I don't necessarily think that's true. I don't think everyone does have access to it.
Everyone in America, well, that's true. You're right. Not everyone may not have access to it, but the majority, I would say, probably at least 80% of America has some form of access to the internet, and therefore some access to a social media website. But I could probably be very wrong about that statistic, so don't quote me for that on that one. I wanted to know if what you think of our societies are very polarized, right? We talked about this in a previous podcast. We all know this.
We've mentioned it a few times.
We've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's the president. I wanted to know, and some people like him, some people don't like him. If you don't like him, and you see someone who likes him, they're automatically the worst person, right? So that's what we mean by a very politically polarized society that America is sort of forming into right now. So I want to know, I sort of feel like, I guess metaphorically, we're sort of building up this bubble to the point where the surface tension is so high that it's going to pop. And I sort of feel like social media is the medium filling up that bubble. So that's sort of what I was thinking when I was thinking of this topic, and I wanted to know what you sort of think of my description of that.
Could you delve into that a little deeper?
I just feel, well, I mean, not specifically social media. I guess, well, I want to say that everyone has, like you said, it's a tool, right?
Right. Yeah.
So everyone has now a very simple way to put their voice out. And this sort of led to, I guess, this sort of polarization of our political spectrum, you could say. So I was thinking that everyone's just sort of shouting out and filling up this bubble. This is what's in my head. This is how I'm thinking of it. So everyone's shouting out, putting their opinion into this bubble, And I think that eventually, I feel like that this bubble popping could sort of, um, as corny as it sounds, start a revolution. That's what and not a revolution in like the sense of the war, the protests against the Vietnam War or something of that drastic nature, but maybe a revolution that we don't know, that don't have any way to, we have nothing to reference back to, like, oh, this was exactly like this in past history. Not like like we can't compare it. It's not like as ridiculous, or not ridiculous, as
I think it's as large a
ridiculous.
transition as going from
Okay, sorry.
going from not being able to communicate around the world and being able to communicate around the world. So
Yes.
going from having to send a telegram or a letter around the world to being able to pick up the phone and call.
Mm-hmm.
Or like satellite technology with being able to go into the jungle and using a satellite phone to talk to people, or cell phones. I think it's a tool that is part of the age of taking space and contracting it as much as possible. So limiting the lag that is encountered by physical space, which I think is a really intriguing part of why this tool is so ubiquitous now. It's because its mobilizing nature is such that it's powerful. It is the only method, I think, that is attuned to the changing age of and the changing landscape of media. So, for instance, during Vietnam, we had a bunch of people protesting, etc. We had phones.
Right.
We had newspaper,
radio
that people listened to or read all the time. We had radio that was listened to, and most importantly, we had really good journalism bringing stories from Vietnam and showing photographs and video images. And we had all sorts of different accounts and the widespread ability, and people were tuning in, and people were tuning in to very trusted newscasters. So we had people like, oh my god, and if any of them could pop into my head at this moment other than Dan Rather, that'd be really great. But you had Walter Cronkite or somebody else, and these are people who came to you day after day, adhering to the idea that the broadcast channels should be delivering concrete and solid news, and people cared about news, and journalists were mostly working on how to be unscrupulous how to be not unscrupulous, the opposite of that, how to be moralistic, and how to be the voice of a people that could have been bamboozled by government sources or different things, right? We had Woodward, Woodward and 3 Days of the Condor. There's the new movie with Spielberg, Tom Hanks, that's coming out too. The people who broke Deep Throat.
Yeah. Watergate.
Yeah, Watergate.
That was Watergate.
Woodward and Bernstein, I think.
Yeah.
So we had trusted news sources, and today's news, today's media landscape is very different. The 80s brought commercialism to the airwaves, and people pushed away from the airwaves when they started to mix both the 80s culture and the 70s, 60s, the 60s culture, right? So
yeah,
when you get the vogue of, I want to see television, but I also don't want to be commercialized to and brainwashed. So we had the peak of commercialization in the 80s and 90s, but the vogue of wanting to know what's going on and break apart things and truth, loose change, right? So those were videos that came about in the style of the 60s and 70s. I'm not saying there's the same level, especially like an idiot documentary like Loose Change, but it is levels of questioning, So when we went into the Iraq War, we stopped trusting government again.
Right.
And I think that we stopped trusting government, we stopped trusting mega corporations to the same extent, and we also have the crash on Wall Street, which is really something that rejiggers the way that people think, right? So
Yes.
now we're seeking greater avenues of more trusted news, right? The big question that everyone always asks is like, so where do you get your news from? Who do you trust? Things like that, right? The more standard answer, the closer we got was like, I get my news from Twitter or Facebook. And then
or the Daily Show.
Yeah, and then we went to the election, and people were surprised that Twitter and Facebook are corporations that don't give a shit what is on their media as long as people are engaging with their medium. So there's no standards or practices that they have to adhere to in terms of making sure that the posts that they're seeing are safe, responsible, factual stories.
Yeah.
So we have the counterculture of the internet culture of the youth, also stepping away from the commercialism of the past. And this is exemplified in social media, and people started to trust social media more than anything. And meantime, we have the commercialization of journalism, which puts forward the idea that we need to bring as many pundits to the airwaves as possible, and the less investigative journalism, because it costs too much for networks or newspapers, and newspapers are dying anyway. So the less investigative journalism we have and the more pundits that just yell at each other, the better it is. And what do you get as a result of brainwashing people on that kind of thing is pundits yelling at each other, deep bases of let's not think or know or do anything except for listen and then shout back. So people then, if all that matters is one opinion shouting at another opinion with very loose facts underlining everything, then of course anybody can shout their opinion. And I think that social media became this great avenue for a culture that sought out vanity and popularity and commercialism without acknowledging the problems that these capitalistic ventures held beneath them, which is if you don't care for the standard of the news that is brought to you, if you don't want to pay for this anything, then you're going to end up with the most the least researched and the most vociferous, the most vainglorious shouting as the epitome of everything. And the person who is the strongest and doesn't take shit from anyone is going to be the champion of all of that. Because they reach an emotionality and a cleverness which isn't part of like education or anything. It's kind of who can be the slickest guy in the room, and that's who they want to be. And I think that the social media as a tool has been co-opted by that in terms of news and different things. And because it's so quick and people don't want to think, they don't want to read, they don't want to investigate because it's just bred out of them to think, read, investigate, right? So CIA comes out with a bunch of information on Russia. Let's just trust the CIA. Why? Is there a reason to trust the CIA? Well, the CIA hasn't lied to us recently. I think.
Yeah.
So let's just trust the news that's coming out. Now, I don't disagree that there's some activity that Russia was involved in, but the amount of that's not even a discussion that's being had, right? There's no discussion of whether to trust the CIA or not. There's no discussion of how to trust the sources that are coming out unless they're for the opposite side. And I think the thing that you can really talk about in terms of bubbling over and revolutionary thing is how do we break the echo chamber? Because I'm listening to all of my liberal friends on this medium, and I don't hear any conservative voices, and I don't care to, because it's the same level of inane bullshit being yelled at each other without, like, 80% of the people who are on the internet actually doing any research besides reading the headline of an article that was posted to Twitter 5 minutes ago. Sorry, that was a long rant.
No, you're right, because I mean, we've sort of probably touched on this before, but I think you're right when you say that no one's willing to have a conversation about anything anymore. They're only trying to tell you their opinion and not hear what you even have to say,
I'm
even though
sorry,
you
I
would.
have to cut you off and say what I want to say right here.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you were being
No, I
serious. I'm like,
wasn't.
God damn it. I pissed him off. I should stop with this channel's disbanded. It's over. But exactly,
Don't
that's
rate,
the
comment, or
exact feeling we're
subscribe. We're
talking
done.
about. Like you said that very well. But like no and I think this obviously arises from the anonymity of that social media gives you. I mean, you're just your profile picture at that point, and that profile picture might not even be of you at that
Do you
point.
think it is?
So
Do you think the anonymity of social media is such a large characteristic
yeah,
of
would
making
you yell
things?
that to Donald Trump's face, right? I don't think anyone would.
I think a
Um,
lot of the protesters in the 70s and 60s did. I think a lot of
I
people,
think they did, but are they on social media? Are they the people on social media right now? I don't think so.
I'm thinking that there's a lot of anonymity in large protesting crowds too. So you get a group
Um,
of like 60 people, 3 people shout out in the middle of it. Nobody knows who shouted.
well, okay,
It's just a
sure.
very large crowd.
Well, okay, you're right. And then I'm not saying I'm saying on average you wouldn't say that. Like, let's say you got in a heated war in a forum for whatever reason, and you said some horrible things to that person. I don't think you'd say that to that person if it wasn't because you were just sitting in front of a screen and typing. I don't think you would say that to their face. Not specifically you. I'm not saying you've
Oh,
ever
I'd
done
be
this.
horrible.
Yeah, but would you do that to someone's face, right? When you take away the fact that there's a human that you're talking to, then you're going to the rules are all out, and you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Is that the saying? I don't know. The
Yeah,
rules are
that's the
out,
saying. I think that
so that is a
one of the
saying.
bigger social
Good job,
media
Julian.
platforms that kind of highlights this is one that really prides itself on huge levels of anonymity. That being 4chan. And if you look at 4chan and its development, goes from an anime fan posting site that was founded by a guy from upstate,
Right.
and it became during the during the election cycle a hardcore alt-right soundboard for anonymous posting, and it was like I've spent a few hours doing some deep dives on some of the political discussion on 4chan just because it's shocking to see people actually say some of the things that they say, and a lot of it could be ascribed to the anonymity of it. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of it could be, there's that mix, right? Is it just that you wouldn't say this unless you were anonymous, or I just want to say this because I kind of feel it, but because I'm anonymous, I have this ability to dive into the taboo of reality and society.
That's a good. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Why can't it be a little bit of both, right?
No, I
I think.
agree, but I don't think
Okay.
it. I think it's a mix of like social taboo and anonymity, and kind of the taboo, breaking the taboo. Always seems to. It seems to be like conservative and right wing people are able to break taboo, but
Mm-hmm.
liberal people increase the layers of taboo in which society has, right? So
Okay.
political correctness keeps getting layered on top of society from the liberal side,
Yes.
through like the way that you have to be careful speaking about LGBT issues, about issues of race, about issues of gender, and the amount of frequency with which people on the left feel free and easy to have that debate with people on the left because they feel that people on the conservative side won't have a discussion, whereas people on the conservative side
Feel the
might not
same
be
way.
that same level of conservative. They just hate those artificial barriers of taboo which are created in society,
Mm-hmm.
and are trying they find some pleasure in attacking those barriers. I mean, it is absolutely hurtful to use some of the language, to use a lot of the vitriolic language that these people are using. It is unacceptable, but I'm saying that it's an increasingly interesting way of isolating the sides. It's like the left will keep putting up barriers and breaking down identity and really trying to deal with the concept of identity. And like, can a white man like me talk about issues of race or gender or sexuality? Because I'm also a straight white man. So do I have an authority to talk about that? I mean, pulling back the curtain, right? Some of the topics that we want to address that are a part of the zeitgeist of America at the moment,
2017,
we're afraid to talk to or talk about on this podcast just because we don't know. We definitely aren't necessarily the voices
we don't have
that can talk about
okay.
it. So it's an interesting level of debate. So I think that anonymity and taboo has a lot to deal with the social media platform.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you were saying about the echo chamber that we've all put ourselves in. I mean, I'm probably in a very similar echo chamber, right? We're connected.
You say you're a New York City liberal.
6 degrees of separation. Technically, anyways, I assume our echo chambers align very closely in our group of friends. That is, that branches out, of course. But I think that
I did live in Tennessee and Texas.
Yes,
and
this
made
is
friends
true.
with people who are from the Deep South.
Well,
So,
that's good because
there are
you need...
some alternatives that I see on my Facebook feed. Not a lot that I pay attention to, God knows. Mostly because I've
actually just
unfollowed
all of them because I hate every single one of them. No, but exactly. So how do we end up breaking? I like what you were saying. How do we end up or the question you pose? I'm not saying. Maybe it's how do we break out of the echo chamber, right? So maybe I said it incorrectly, but I didn't. Or maybe I did say that we were coming close to bursting that bubble, I guess. I'm not necessarily 100% sure that we're close at all. I wanted to say that this bubble is filling up as we come up with all these new social media movements like #MeToo, Black Lives Matter, the Wall Street one, I forget what it's called, but
Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, Occupy Wall Street and all these things, right? I mean, it's sort of just, I think, one layer on the other. It's building up, but I also think that because, like you said, social media is such a quick platform, and we want to move on to the next story. It's old news. I really don't want these movements to just fall behind fall victim to that syndrome, I guess, of just clicking on the next thing and clicking on the next thing and scrolling down further into your feed because it's now infinite.
Right, the clicktivism
I remember the days
aspect of it.
Yeah.
Right, so going back to social media as clicktivism versus social media as an active platform that can change things. Like, how many people remember changing their Facebook profile picture to a green flag in support of the democratic practices being subverted in Iran?
No, exactly. I definitely didn't do that. So
yeah, so I mean, there is the story of the day kind of aspect of it, but what about how social media can activate a language change through in
vernacular?
Yeah, the vernacular of what we say today. Our lexicon is changed based on how many times we've heard.
It's all emojis.
It is all emojis, and I'm sending as many bitmojis as I can.
I still don't know what a bitmoji is. I don't know. I refuse to know. Anyways, keep going. Sorry.
But for instance, Occupy Wall Street changed the lexicon by introducing the 1% and the 99%, right? And we still use those phrases in our debates today across the political spectrum. So is the ability of social media to bring voices to these movements and changing how the language that we use, Is that a lasting effect, even though we might move on to the next issue of the day?
Is that a lesson? Can you repeat that question?
So
Sorry, I got a
things
little.
like
I got a
using,
little lost.
yeah,
Sorry.
like how people use like the 1% versus the 99%,
Yes.
or like in terms of even the use of the term Black Lives Matter, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is a social movement that has, it's not just a social media movement, it is a social movement,
Right, of
but it's
course. I
changed.
didn't mean to belittle it by
Right,
any
yeah.
means. Sorry.
I mean, same here. That wasn't the issue that I
Yeah,
was getting to, but I'm
but
saying
I'm sure it'll piss someone
those
off.
the lexicon that we use, right? We know what Black Lives Matter means and implies. It's
Mm-hmm.
changed how we talk. So we talk about race in a different way. We talk about quality or issues of income inequality in a different way based on the language that we learned from Occupy Wall Street. So even if we've moved from one social media hashtag to the next, does that lasting
It's
effect of the change in how we speak of things based on the multitudes of tweets or Facebook posts that we see, is that a lasting enough effect from these social media campaigns?
I feel like, and I don't mean to poke fun at it, but I feel like it's the moment. It could end up being the moment, when in Wall-E, when the humans start walking again.
I don't remember. I recall that this moment
They
existed.
they get really fat,
Yeah. They're all in their
and
Burka
then they're on
loungers that
those
move
floating
around.
chairs. So I could feel, but they remember how to walk. This is very far-fetched, and I don't mean to poke fun at any of these movements, but I feel like as we move on to the next one and to the next one, we're sort of forgetting about the last. Well, not we're not forgetting about it. Never forget. But like we're sort of just moving on to the next issue without solving the prior one that's still ongoing, right? So I feel like it could end up being a situation where we're thrown all these issues and how am I supposed to solve this? I have a job. I got to go do that, right? So what can I do? I'm so busy all the time. So I feel like it could be if it just gets ingrained in your mind, like the Wally person walking again, and it might be not be something you're so familiar with anymore because it's not in the lexicon, as you say, or well, no, it is in your lexicon, just in the back of your mind. So I think just being exposed to these movements, even in just a quick scroll through your Facebook feed, is better than nothing. So so and I think, and obviously, I think it's fairly obvious that um, specifically like these transgender rights, hashtag Me Too, and Black Lives Matters, I feel like these problems have been going on since like before the 60s, for almost all of American history. These problems have been going on, I'm pretty certain, right? With maybe not exactly, but I think so.
I agree that issues of sexual harassment, issues, racial divides, and
Yes,
black people were even considered
of
to be
course.
humans
And
back in the
even
early
I'm
founding
sure
of this country. So
that I'm almost certain there had to have been some sort of transgender debacle going on, even though it was definitely taboo back then.
well, I mean, just the
Um,
fact that it's taboo is an issue, right?
right,
It's
exactly.
it
But
is
but
illegally immoral and part of the ability of society
oh
to
no, of
to
course,
ostracize and stuff.
choose
Yeah,
whichever bathroom you feel comfortable in,
yeah.
right? So, in my opinion, but look, but now we have the tools. Now everyone has the tools to talk about it in the way that they want to voice their opinion, and that becomes, I think, a very powerful thing
My
to
question
put in everyone's
my
hands.
question with that is like, what percentage of posts do you read? Like, for instance, for me, I don't go on to social media even once a day. Probably, I go
Mm-hmm.
on to Facebook, well, YouTube, but
It counts.
I use YouTube more as like a
A
supplement
creative
for
outlet for
television
yourself. Oh,
rather
you mean that?
than
Okay, yeah.
like I'm looking for a post
To
about the
catch up.
news or whatever.
Oh no, yeah, I don't get any news. I get entertainment from YouTube. That's pretty much what I use.
Right. So
I'll
like
watch a video game thing or something.
exactly. So but
That's what I watch on
what's
YouTube.
the difference between like using social media and people will post something and then they're super waiting for that slot machine.
Got
Remembered it.
1,000 likes.
Remembered it. Of people
Yeah.
liking it or
Finally.
whatever, commenting on it maybe. But what percentage is it's just funny to me. It's like I will post something and then want everybody to talk about it, and then I won't read through 80% of whatever. I'll stop by if it's an image, but I won't read through. And especially that's been increasingly my habit on social media since
Done.
the
Of
blow
social
up
media.
of using social media to shout out your opinion. Because I
Well,
find a lot of people have really uninformed opinions about a lot of things, and it bothers
of
me a
course.
lot.
I mean, and then you don't choose to have the conversation with them, right? To correct them, or at least in your mind, to correct them.
Right.
So are we all just part of this problem?
Yes.
Right, but I should. So, but then they'll obviously get mad at you for being a dick. Like, not that you're a dick, but just.
But the interpretation is like, I'm going to engage you on this and question you on this.
Yeah,
And then you
yeah.
are being a dick because you didn't wholeheartedly
Because you're attacking
agree.
me now.
Right.
Because you're saying I'm wrong. So,
There's also a big problem with people not being able to disassociate their arguments from themselves.
yes, absolutely. Well, that's the whole problem with politics, right?
What are you saying about me? I am my opinion.
Well, in politics, it is very difficult to dissociate these things because it ends up being your life views. These can be related to your morals.
It is the idea that the personal is the political,
Yeah.
but it's as much as the personal is the political. There has to be some information that helps back that up. It can't just be
Of
a
course.
feeling.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying I can see why it would be difficult. In fact, I'm probably very guilty of it many times. I'm not. I'd like to say I'm willing to have a conversation, but it depends on how someone approaches me. Right? It's usually in a very negative way, or at least you perceive it that way, and that sort of just shutting down and not willing to have that conversation is really the problem. I think you're right. So I mean, I feel like I avoided your initial question, and then I started talking about Wally, and I guess I have to apologize for that. It's really dumb. It made sense in my mind. And what I was trying to say was that if we keep exposing ourselves to these movements over and over again, eventually we'll come across a moment in our lives and say where we're put in a position to make a decision, and maybe we'll side with the movement or maybe not, but at least we'll have known that the movement was there. So I think that whether or not anything comes from these social media movements in terms of political reform, I think that at least we're exposing people who would otherwise not be consuming any sort of news. At least we're exposing those people to. I mean, not specifically me, but I'm not. I've not taken part in any of these movements, but at least we're exposing. At least they know because of social media that these movements exist. Is what I'm trying to say. And so I think that's what I was thinking about with Wally, because they always knew how to walk, but they didn't know what walking was until they had to stand up. This is Stupid reference. Sorry.
It's fine.
Very stupid. Well, I feel like we've rambled on a lot, but I think if there's one thing we can encourage, or that I can encourage, I don't want to speak for you, our viewers to do or our listeners to do, is to just be really open and have a conversation with your fellow conservative or liberal, and just try to start a conversation. Don't automatically jump to conclusions. Don't automatically start attacking the other side or get very defensive because you feel like you're being attacked. I assure you, well, I don't assure you, I don't know the conversations you're having, but I would like to see more conversations out there. In fact, this is why I follow Colin Moriarty. He's one of my favorites, or was one of my favorite games journalists, and then he sort of branched off from that part of his life and started doing these political and historical videos. So he recaps, he talks about a political issue, current political issue, or he makes a video on just something that happened in history because he likes history a lot. So I always learn a lot from him because he's definitely somewhat, I mean, he's very open about his politics, and I think that's fine to be. But he's someone that strikes me as very level-headed, and of course we don't know these people, or I don't know him personally, but he strikes me as someone who's very level-headed and very willing to have a conversation. In fact, that's his whole message on YouTube, is to we need to stop this political polarization, and we need to all come and compromise with each other, because this country has 300 million people in it, and we can't please them all, but we can try to if we come to the middle and compromise. So I think that's his political stance in a nutshell. You guys can go look him up if you want to, but I agree with it. I might not agree with him, all his political views, but I definitely agree that we need to start having more conversations about anything.
Literally. At things.
Which is why I think we started, one of the reasons why we started this podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, because we like talking to each other, Yvonne. I love talking to you.
I'm
but
okay
if
with talking
we,
to you.
Yeah, I know. I mostly just let you talk, but that's fine with me. I like to listen.
I hate that
personally.
I go on 10-minute rants in the middle of our podcast.
Well, I think they're very informative personally, and you always teach me something during the podcast. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I enjoy talking to you, Julien.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
I think all of my thoughts are very well, not articulated, but very well propagated throughout this.
You might have to listen to the podcast 3 or 4 times to get it.
Yeah.
Ingrained in your head, but that would be a waste of time.
It's social media isn't a tool for change.
You think so?
Because if you go to China and you try to access Facebook or Twitter, it is either blocked or it's not the same.
Yes.
And the leaders of many social media giants have kowtowed to the wishes of undemocratic peoples or undemocratic governments throughout the world. Mm-hmm. So it is not
They're
tool
a corporation
for change. It's a corporation. They just want things to be interacted with.
A capitalist corporation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is a tool for communication and a tool that is exceedingly widespread at the current moment. So I did look up the statistics, and it's from a Pew study. It said that 80+% of adults have access to internet through smartphones or something like that.
In the world?
In the U.S.
And this is as of 2016 or something, or 2015?
It's fairly recent, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I believe it. I don't see why not.
So, it is increasingly part of our lives to be connected on the internet and with these things. But the problem with considering social media as a natural good or a social good is that it really is a tool for capitalism, and it is a tool for money making, and is amoral at its core. Social media is amoral. It doesn't have a centered ethical base other than don't sue us.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
it isn't a tool
In
for
fact,
social
they
change,
own all our
but
photos.
it can be used as a tool for communication and organizing, which is way more important.
Yeah.
Call your congressman, your congresswoman, your representative, know who they are. I know that there are some apps or social media functions that can actually be used to disperse information to those people. So if you disagree with some way or want to support something like keeping the internet free and fair, and countering Ajit Pai's decisions and ideas.
Did we get screwed yet?
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. So
will we know when we're screwed? Is the question.
Or we won't know, because then the corporations don't have to report on that news. Because it doesn't have to be free and fair.
It's pretty bad.
Yep. So yeah, there's just a bunch of things that we need to keep track of and make sure that we don't consider social media a thing that is an innate good. But it does have a lot of potential, and we need to get out of this echo chambery function of it. But I don't think that we are headed in that direction in any way whatsoever at the
anytime soon. Yeah,
I think that we're boiling over for a revolution based on the fact of how capitalism has affected people, and we need a change in terms of how the economic system operates, because it's just hardening and boiling down to less and less companies own more and more companies throughout the world. And I don't care how many small businesses are started in a year, if there are like 30 companies that own the majority of products that are released in the entire world, and like half of them pay an equal percentage of tax. Look up the Paradise Papers, folks. Then what's the point? Then what's the point? Anyway, your closing thoughts, Julien. Hopefully not as pessimistic as mine.
No, I definitely agree with what you're saying, and I think that you're right in that. Well, you're definitely right in what you say. So I think that maybe these.
I'm just gonna clip that and just play that whenever we disagree on anything.
Well, you're right. You're definitely right. Okay. No, but I guess maybe these social media movements are partially coming up because people are clamoring to any way that they can voice their grievances with what's happened to them, and it so happens to be the easiest way through social media, right? So maybe that's why they're gaining so much attention on social media, and I guess that's what I wanted to say on that. But it doesn't, not to discredit them or anything, or these movements. But yeah, so you're definitely right. Obviously, Facebook, I don't know if Mark Zuckerberg's, that's his name, still owns Facebook, but he's in it to make money, right? I can't imagine why he would stop making money.
That's why he made Spider-Man not part of his company or whatever. Exactly.
Fuck that shit. And then I think, and Twitter's the same way, right? That's a corporation. Didn't they went
I think
public?
Twitter had an IPO recently, but I'm not positive on that.
It was a couple years ago, but they had an IPO. And then Instagram's the same thing. They're all companies that started in America, right? If I'm not mistaken, all of these popular ones started in America. And I mean, just be wary of that when you just keep that in the back of your mind every time you post something on Facebook, every time you use Facebook. Be aware of these things. And yes, they're definitely reading everything you say, and they also own everything you put on the website. So these are things to think about when next time you get that like. Think about it. Is it really yours? But yeah, so I guess that's what I feel about. That's how I feel about this, and I wanted to say that I want these movements to actually inform political, become political, create political reform in that I see in my lifetime. I want that to be true. But the only way that's going to happen is if we call our congressmen and things like that and vote them out or vote them in. So that's all on us. And it can't just be posted on social media. We actually have to do things about it. So that's about it.
All right.
Yeah, so anyways, we end our podcast every single week in a song in a segment called Hungover Radio. This is where you, the viewer, listener, or person
Just
on
general
social media,
person.
perhaps, general person, you can send in the music that you created. We would love to listen to it and share on social media everywhere that it's essentially free advertisement for you guys. All right, come on. Yeah, so if you wrote a song, if you played an instrument, if you have something to share with us, please share it at gaminghungover@gmail.com. Get in contact us with that way. I'm always checking that. It's on my phone. It buzzes every now and then. I think we get some weird spam emails. Those are basically all we're getting on that email because you guys don't send in any goddamn music to us. So I have to choose a song. God damn it. Or if you want to promote your friend's band or something like that, definitely send that in. And we'll link it out in the video, but we'll play it in the audio portion. So you'll get the clicks, the social media likes, the sharing. If everyone's watching the video, we don't claim any of that copyright stuff. But it's definitely going in the podcast audio. All right. If you know what I mean. But anyways, today I got to choose a song, and I think I wanted to celebrate the fact that Animal Crossing's going mobile. Time to go mobile. We can't get away from these goddamn movies. When are they gonna make a better movie? I don't think ever.
It's Citizen Kane and the Dark Knight trilogy. Right there.
They're amazing. But yeah, Animal Crossing is going mobile on iOS and Android devices. You can get this game. I love Animal Crossing. It's this weird life simulator where you talk to cute little animals and you like farm shit. You don't farm anything, but you fish for fish, catch bugs. It's a Nintendo game. You guys should all check it out. When it comes out, I don't even know, to be honest with you, because I don't really care too much about mobile games, but I think this is a good opportunity to expose people to Nintendo games that they might not have even heard of. So I think this is Nintendo's idea. They're trying to get people hooked on Nintendo games on their phone, and then, check out this Nintendo Switch. It's pretty cool. It runs all these games, but way better. So I think that's their plan, but I hope it works because more people need to play Nintendo games. This song is from actually all the Animal Crossing games. This song is in it. There's this character called KK Ryder. He's this dog that plays the guitar he's a dog that plays the guitar in the town. He's usually at the local pub in the town. Although because it's a kid game, you only get juice at the pub, or whatever it is, or milk or something.
Can't you grow beer in that game?
No, that's definitely Stardew Valley, a much more
robust
mature
game.
Version of Animal Crossing. Yes, so robust, but Animal Crossing is cuter, I think. Anyways, KK Ryder you can ask him to play different songs, and he'll play songs that are taken from, they're adaptations of real world songs, of famous songs. This one's called Go KK Ryder, and he sings it in a way that might not be pleasing to your ears, but I hope you guys enjoy it. He has a very funny voice. It's not a real voice because Nintendo doesn't like voice acting.
Gotta pay him.
Gotta pay him, but you don't have to pay him if it's made from the the MIDI chip. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Keep the conversation going in the comment section below. We'd love to talk to you guys about your opinions on social media and all these social movements. So, yeah.
All right.
That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See you next week.
Bye.
Peace out.
Quack,